Hi everybody. Today we're going to be doing another one of those reviews of a thing that you can find online and learn German for free. Today we are talking about the much awaited topic of Duolingo. Duolingo is the #1 rated online free language learning program according to PC Magazine. It is like famous for so many different reasons. It even has its own subreddit in Reddit. It is that famous. So anyway, that's Duolingo. Let's go ahead and get started into talking about kind of what does this thing do. Whenever you first sign into Duolingo, it asks you if you want to start by taking a test or if you just want to start from scratch. I chose to take a test so that I could kind of jump around and see some other activities without actually, starting from scratch and then actually going through all of the different topics. So I tested myself first, and then I went ahead and started playing around with the program a little bit. I tested into a level 10. Apparently there are 25 different levels. So first things first, Duolingo has a little bit of a flashcard feel to it at the beginning of it. So when you first start, it gives you a couple of words and you have to pick the translation for it. There's generally a little pop-up window that tells you additional information about new words and new phrases. Anytime that you see an orange word, you can hover over the top of it. It'll give you more information about it. It'll give you a couple of synonyms in English about it. Once you get into the actual lesson though, past the flashcards part of it, they have a little bit different flashcards. We have some flashcards where you have to listen to something and type out what it says. There's some where you have to listen and say it back to them. There's other ones where you have to just read something and translate it. And this works in both languages whenever you're switching back and forth in between the different ones. So it's not just translating this way or translating that way, or it's not just flashcards, or it's not just reminding you that you can actually see these things, but it's actually testing whether or not you remember them in both languages, which is kind of fun. Also, there's some on here where you have to read things out loud, so it'll read it to you first, and then you have to read it in that foreign language again. The software seems a little bit clunky on this part of it. It seems like as long as I get it somewhere near the right words, I should be okay, but occasionally it just doesn't like the way I say things. So it seems a bit clunky as far as the pronunciation thing, but it is a nice little trick to kind of test you, even if it's not all that accurate. It is kind of cool that it even exists. Now that's just kind of the how-to kind of stuff. Once you get past the initial intro test to see how well you actually know anything at all, and then you start into some of the little programs, you win points for the various topics that you can do here. You can set a goal for the daily goal. It tells you like how many XP you're going to get for the day. A really low goal would be 20 points because that's basically just 2 of these little lessons that you can take. A higher goal, I would suggest somewhere around 100 or so points per day at least if you're going to be doing this, if you're serious about learning a language, that is. It's not just vocabulary that you can do on here. You can also do grammar. It teaches you grammar through vocabulary, which is awesome. It continually repeats words that you don't know as well. It continues to repeat the ones that you do know, but not on the same basis as it does for the ones that you don't do very well on. So basically, it is an intuitive program that continues to remind you of things that you actually do know, but also reminds you more often of the things that you don't know all that well. So that I personally think is just fantastic, because repetition is key to learning a foreign language, and there is no better way to do it than this type of intuitive program where it knows what you know and it knows what you don't know. So it's kind of like Santa Claus. It's just fantastic. It knows when your brain has been sleeping, it knows when you're awake, and it knows if you don't know this well enough or not. Now, anytime that you think that you already know something, so if you come across a particular topic and you're like, oh, I already know that, there's actually a test out option, so you can click on a particular topic, and then off to the right-hand side it says test out, and you can click that button and it'll give you a test that'll see whether or not you actually understand things as well as you think you do, which is another great thing on here. So long story short, there are just like a ton of different reasons that I like this program. You learn vocabulary, you learn grammar, you learn how to pronounce things, or at least closely related to the way that you should be pronouncing things, and the repetition is amazing. Now for those of you who are like, well, I'm not going to get the words the first time through that I try these out, I'm not going to get it on the one time that they show you that one word, and that's one of the other cool things on here. There is a flashcard app built into Duolingo. So while you're learning these words, if you learn a bunch of different words and you think you know them well, it'll come up and give you a bar grade on how well you know these words. So you have an overdue, which means that you haven't practiced this in a while and you should probably do this again. Time to practice is 2 bars, which means that it's probably a good idea if you check this word out again just to make sure you know it. If you know it pretty well, then it'll give you 3 bars, and if you're still strong, in other words, you just got done testing yourself on these words, it'll give you a 4-bar rating on that. Now, the cool part is, if you just want to study some flashcards, you can hit the little review flashcards button, and it'll give you a flashcard in German, and you translate it over to English, and each time it'll give you a different word, and it continues to give you a list of words that you haven't seen as often, and it will continue to space these out so that you know that you're studying words that you actually need to study because you haven't seen them in a while. That, I think, is just wonderful. There is, of course, the other thing, the thing that made Duolingo famous, and that is that you can actually translate things directly from the interwebs. Once you get to a certain point, it'll tell you that you can officially start translating some stuff. So, for instance, in the Spanish version that I was doing, I can't actually translate anything at this point because I don't speak any Spanish, and I haven't gotten to a point where I can actually translate any sentences. But once you get up to a certain level, it'll give you the option to translate some actual text from the actual internet from real life things that are out there on the web. And you can hit that button and you can start translating on your own, and it'll give you suggestions based on other people's translations, and you can start trying to actually use the language that you understand so far, and you can go through and rate other people's translations of things. You can kind of read things that are on the interwebs. It is just a great way to practice, and the reason that this made Duolingo famous is because Duolingo actually helps to translate the interwebs while they are doing all of these wonderful things for you, which is why they're free. And that is another wonderful thing about Duolingo, is they will never ask you for money at all whatsoever. There is no money involved in Duolingo. There's no advertising. There's nothing on here that is asking for any type of monetary donations or anything. It's literally free as free can get. Unlike Busu, which I did the review on before, where it asks you to pay for certain aspects of it, Duolingo is free, not like free for parts of it, but like free, you know, like no monies. So that's awesome. Now, don't get me wrong. I do have complaints about Duolingo. In fact, I have several of them. Duolingo is by far the greatest program out there on the internet that is free for people to learn a foreign language. But that being said, there are some quirks. First of all, some of the vocabulary that they give you is just kind of like weird. Not necessarily the vocabulary itself, but the combination of the words that they've used. For instance, I got several weird sentences in the version that I was doing. So far, I have "the body is heavy" was one of my sentences I had to translate, which is "der Körper ist schwer," which I got right, but the body is heavy, like I'm carrying around a dead body somewhere. Okay. The other one was "Switzerland is without hope." I feel sorry for the Swiss, I guess, because according to Duolingo, they are without hope. I also got the sentence of "I don't have a life," and not once, not twice, not 3 times, but I actually had it 4 different times of "I don't have a life" as one of the sentences that I had to translate. I had to write it out, I had to say it out loud, and I had to translate it from one language to the other. That was just kind of creepy that I had that show up several times. But, so anyway, some of the words that you have on this list, some of the sentences that you get are just a little bit weird and clunky, and they don't really make much sense that they would be on the list, but they're there. My second complaint is that some of the audio that they have sounds a little bit robotic. It sounds almost like they had Google Translate's voice try and translate things for you and then say them out loud, which is okay, I guess, but it's not really what I was hoping for. It just seems to me that a program of this quality should also have quality audio, and that's something that they're lacking. I think that they should probably have native speakers trying to say the sentences that they have on here. I understand why they don't, because obviously that would be expensive, especially if you're going to make them read through all 25 levels worth of stuff. But, you know, it's definitely worth something noting that they need a little bit of work on that.
Das wird uns unseren Sonntag kosten. Sie begann eine Ausbildung. Sie verändern dich.
My third complaint is that some of the things for pronunciation practice are not all that great. First of all, I know that I pronounce things off a little bit sometimes, but not nearly as off as they're thinking that I am on Duolingo. So Duolingo needs to kind of work a little bit on their algorithm as far as what it is that I'm saying so that they can check my pronunciation. If the idea is to check my pronunciation, they should probably be able to check that well as opposed to checking it poorly as they are doing right now. Ein Mann. Ein Mann. Ein Mann. Ein Mann. There's my 3 major complaints about it. Overall, though, if I were to give the programs that I've checked so far a kind of a numerical value on them, Live Mocha would probably be around a 3. Let's be honest, the fact that their community is non-existent is a huge downer, and the only reason that I would use it in the first place is because their community, but their community doesn't exist, and therefore that is kind of a problem. So I'd give Live Mocha a 3 or so. I would probably actually give Busuu like a 7 or an 8. The only reason that I would rate it a little bit lower is because it doesn't have all of the stuff free, and I like to have everything for free, and I know that sounds selfish, but I don't really care. That's kind of the purpose of having something online for free. I don't care if they put some advertising on it, but I just don't want to pay for stuff. So that's why I would rate Busuu somewhere around a 7 or an 8. But Duolingo has to be a 10 out of 10. Duolingo is just fantastic, and I can't say enough good things about it. Sure, I have my minor complaints about the audio and the voiceover and some of the sentences being clunky and everything. The fact that it is as extensive as it is, there are 25 levels for each language, and that is just phenomenal. It being that extensive means that I have to give it as great of a rating as I possibly can, because there are so many awesome things going on Duolingo. In fact, I was actually just playing around on it for like an hour for no apparent reason, and that was just because I was bored and I was like, hey, let's go play around on Duolingo. I actually learned some new German words while I was sitting here because I didn't know all of them. I may actually use it to improve my German from what I have now anyway, because I could use the extra practice, and let's face it, teaching doesn't really necessarily expand my knowledge because, well, I'm teaching it. That's Duolingo. It's just phenomenal. And if all of that wasn't enough, Duolingo also has one of the coolest apps on the web. You can use this on your Android or on your Apple devices, and it downloads relatively quickly, and it works really, really quickly as far as like getting the next sentence up and all of that kind of thing. Also, I have my phone set up as in English and in German so that whenever I talk to it, it understands which language I'm choosing, and then it will kind of write down words in the proper language, which is another cool little trick that I'll have to tell you about some other time. This app, whenever you're typing out all of the sentences, if you don't want to try and like hunt and peck with your one finger to type out things like that, you can actually just hit the little microphone button, and I can say it out loud in German or in English, and my phone will recognize it and type out the sentence for me, which does another wonderful little cool thing about that, is that now I have to find out whether or not Google understands what I'm saying and Duolingo understands what I'm saying. So between the 2 programs, I can finally get my pronunciation down as much as I really would like to, and that's yet another cool thing, not just because it's on the app, but it's actually something that you can try out on your own if you try and change your phone so that it has English as your first language, but German as your second language.
Das Wort wurde geschrieben.
Das Wort wurde geschrieben.
But the app essentially works the same as it does for the online version. The only difference is that the app hasn't been updated to get rid of the 3 strikes and you're out kind of thing. So if you get 3 things wrong on the app, it will still kick you out and make you do the lesson over again. But if you're doing this on the computer, it will give you more questions until you finally get all of them right. That is one thing that is a little bit clunky, is that they haven't actually updated to go past the heart system. But once they get rid of that, that should be perfectly fine and should work really, really well, just like everything else does. So that's it. That's my review of Duolingo. It is probably my favorite thing on the internet right now, and I actually may be using it to learn Spanish sometime in the near future just because it's that much fun and I have nothing better to do with my time. If you want to see more videos from me, click on some buttons. In the meantime, I'm out of here. Bye now.